Thank you. Please be seated. Prefect joke of the day is, what do you call a cow with no legs? Ground beef.
Thanks, Toby. Sorry to keep you waiting this morning. Sounds as if I'm in an echo chamber. Sorry to keep you waiting this morning. I was just sorting something out outside. We have a young Frenchman that's joined us, and he was Carl Swainson's exchange partner. Yanis, where are you, Yanis? Yanis, have a stand up. Welcome, Yanis, to our community. Bienvenue. I think just over a week ago, a number of our students went down to Brentwood to do the district's authority scholarship, the Dogwood Scholarship it used to be, and do the interviews and so on for that. And we have 7 successful recipients, and we haven't recognized them yet, so I'm going to ask them to stand when I read their name, and we'll applaud them all. For studio arts, a scholarship to Zoe Colclough. For robotics, a scholarship to Stefan Esquivel. For community service, a scholarship to Megan Gotkin. For popular music instrumental, a scholarship to Callie King. For leadership, a scholarship to Naya Miranda. For photography, a scholarship to Alexis Welsh. And for innovation sports broadcasting, a scholarship to Thomas Wilkie. Stand up, please. Thank you. Well done, all of you. So tomorrow is a big day in Russia, and I'm going to ask Venera, Demir, and Alice to come and tell you a little bit about that. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Venera, and today Alice, Demir, and I are going to talk to you about one of the most important celebrations in Russia. Tomorrow, on the 9th of May, Russia and many other countries who were part of the Soviet Union will be celebrating the victory over Nazi Germany in the Second World War. In fact, in Russia, we don't call it the Second World War like that. We call it the Great Patriotic War, because so many lives of Russian people were spared. By one calculation, for every single American soldier killed fighting the Germans, 80 Soviet soldiers died doing the same. There is not a single family who wasn't affected by this war. Despite the horrors of the war, the Victory Day is a very positive celebration. 9th of May is a nationwide holiday. On this day, people celebrate by singing songs about war and visiting war survivors and veterans in order to hear their wartime stories and maybe help them with their domestic life. One of the most important parts of the V-Day is Victory Parade, which takes place in 28 cities in Russia, where Russian army shows technology that was used during the Second World War, along with the latest new technology, to show how the army has developed. The annual parade marks the Allied victory in World War II on the Eastern Front, on the same day as the signing of the German Act of Capitulation to the Allies in Berlin, at midnight of 9 May 1945 in Russian time. This year's parade will also mark the centennial year since the 1918 foundation of the Red Army. This year, for the first time in the Victory Day parade in Moscow, armored vehicles from the Red Army during the Russian Civil War will take part in the parade mobile column. President Vladimir Putin said in his parade address that we feel a piercing blood relationship with a generation of heroes and winners. From old soldiers to young children, everyone in Russia recognizes and respects its heroic contribution to the defeat of Nazism. It is a no Labor Day. The whole country comes together to celebrate this great victory on the 9th of May.
Officially, the Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939. However, Soviet Union was attacked on 22nd of June 1941 with Operation Barbarossa. Hitler sent 3 million soldiers and 3,500 tanks into Russia. The initial success of Operation Barbarossa was astounding, involving huge encirclements and the destruction of Red Army's divisions and formations deployed close to Russia's western borders. Hitler and his generals had planned for a short and ferocious war against what they believed was a badly organized and led Red Army, and in those first few weeks, it was an analysis that appeared to be accurate. Most observers did not believe that the Soviet Union would recover from its initial loss. Indeed, it seemed by the end of November 1941 that the fall of Moscow was inevitable as the enemy approached to within view of the Kremlin spires. What followed is legendary. The Soviet counteroffensive at the gates of Moscow began on September 5, 1941, with Stalin reviewing Red Army troops as they marched through Red Square. After militarization, Russian people were ready to protect their citizens and fight for our country. There are many battles that Soviet Union won, but one of the most important ones is the Battle of Stalingrad. I can spend a long time talking about the battle, but this time I want to focus on the outcomes. Both sides had large armies of 1 million soldiers. They also had hundreds of tanks and over 1,000 planes. It is estimated that total Axis casualties are believed to have been more than 800,000 dead, wounded, missing, or captured. On the Soviet side, it's estimated that there were 1,100,000 Red Army dead, wounded, missing, or captured in the campaign to defend the city. An estimated 40,000 civilians died as well. However, the biggest loss of the civilians was during the Leningrad blockade, also called the 900-day siege. For almost 3 years, city was blocked from the world, cutting the citizens out of supplies. People were dying mostly from starvation, exposure, disease, and shelling from distant artillery. Sparse food and fuel supplies reached the city by barge in the summer and by truck and ice-borne sled in winter across Lake Ladoga. These supplies kept the city's arms factories operating and its 2 million inhabitants barely alive in 1942, while 1 million more of its children, sick and elderly, were being evacuated. After the war, the Soviet government reported 670,000 registered deaths from 1941 to January 1944, explained as resulting mostly from starvation, stress, and exposure. Some independent studies suggested a much higher death toll between 700,000 and 1.5 million. On 16th of April 1945, Soviet Union went into Berlin. By the 2nd of May, the city's garrison surrendered. However, the fighting continued to the northwest, west, and southwest of the city. On 9th of May, or 8th of May, they signed the truce. The Second World War left indelible effect on Europe. United Kingdom lost 460,000 people. France lost 600,000 people. US lost 420,000 people. Germany lost 7 million people. Soviet Union's estimated loss is 20 to 27 million people. When you add all the deaths together in Europe and in Asia, it brings us to a grand total of 70 million people. More people died in Second World War than in any war in history. I would now ask you to join me in a moment of silence to honor those who died in the war. Thank you.
Morning. As tomorrow is the 9th of May, we would like to invite you all to celebrate that important occasion with us. Remember those who stood for our future. Every year, our families take part in an immortal regiment march. Thousands of people, including my parents and the parents of those who are from Soviet countries, post pictures of their relatives who fought in the war on billboards. They bring the billboards with pictures, names, and different details to the parade that often happens on the main street of the city. They then walk all together, rising billboards and remembering their families. At the final stage of the parade, we celebrate by singing, dancing, and a bit of drinking, of course. My family, my dad, and all my grandparents annually go to the parade. In some cities, even granddads and grandmas who fought in the war might come to remember and celebrate with us. Unfortunately, I did not have a chance to be there for the last 4 years. However, even though I will never forget my great-grandfathers who fought through almost the whole war, from 1941 up to 1945, and had the bravery to come back, from flying the bombardiers to helping on the ground, they did it all, as well as my great-grandma who helped unpack ammunition, food, and medical assistance. Every year, every one of our families has been affected by the war in some way. All of us have a close relative who fought in the war, whether they're alive or have passed away. Tomorrow, millions of people will remember and show respect and pride to those who shaped our world in the way as it is right now. Vanira, Alice, and I are up here this morning to invite you to share that celebration with our countries and pay the respects to those who gave their lives for us and for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, you three. Some sobering statistics there on a sunny morning. I think the majority of those who gave their lives would be hoping that they were giving their lives so that the present generations could have the sort of life that we're living, and that we learn from those mistakes in history. It's never easy to talk about some of the awful things that have happened in history, and you can go to whatever part of the world and to whatever nationality, and you can talk about some of the awful things that have happened. But it should be done if we're going to learn from it. So I hope that you appreciated that message this morning. It wasn't intended in any way, shape, or form to offend anyone. It was to quite rightly point out that they were in Russia, which suffered more than any other country in that Second World War. There's a really very important celebration to honor all those people. In essence, thanks Alice, thanks Tamir, thanks Vanir. Okay, switching a little bit now. MCB. He's not going to tell you off. I don't think so, anyway.
No, not yet. Thank you, Mr. Robertson. It's a time of the year when our focus shifts to student leadership, and it gives me great pleasure to do so. It's something that's certainly close to my heart, and something that really does fire me up, seeing the array of student leaders amongst you guys. And really thinking about it, and I was trying to get the common features that set our leaders apart. And there really are two things. And I'll hand over to some students in a few moments, but I'd just like to go into this a touch. Our student leaders, by my estimation, are leaders that look for the opportunity to help others as they develop themselves. And this is what we're looking for, whether it be in the sports, the fine arts, the musical, anywhere in between, certainly in the boarding houses, to the leaders with the titles, the prefects, etc. I would like to hand over to two groups of leaders. First of all, I would like to hand over to Isaac, Kerry, and Nate Goliath, who accompanied me to Lakefield College for a fantastic student leadership conference a few weeks ago to share a few of their ideas on what leadership means to them. I'd like to also then hand over to Dean, Naya, and Leah to reflect a little bit on their student leadership experiences from the prefect vantage point. Before I do so, however, it is that time of year where we start getting the ball rolling on the prefect selection process. If you are a grade 11 student out there, and if you think this is something you're interested in, I'd like to invite you to the Mitchell Hall this Friday, May the 11th at 7:30 in the evening for just a bit of an information session about what being a prefect is about. The current prefects will be there, and they'll be able to answer questions, and it will be fairly short. That's this Friday at 7:30 in the Mitchell Hall. Before I do that, I would like to call up the Lakefield Student Leadership Conference team. and then Dean and Naya and Leah will come up after that. Up you come.
Good morning, everyone. Earlier this term, Isaac, Carrie, Talani, and I, along with Mr. CB, left rainy BC on an all-night red-eye flight from Victoria to arrive in wintry Ontario. The upside to a sleepless night on the plane? Our destination, the Case Student Leadership Conference at Lakefield College School. After an early arrival, we spent the morning exploring the snowy streets of Toronto, including a trip to the Hockey Hall of Fame. We then proceeded to Lakefield to begin an eventful 5 days. Some of my personal social highlights include being witness to Isaac's smoothness in his constant late-night extracurricular FaceTimes, accidentally dropping Carrie into a snowbank during the closing formal dinner, and all the good times had with my new friends from schools all around Canada. Sprinkled around the fun were numerous exceptional educational moments. However, one in particular stands out: the tale of Joel Hilchey and his courage-testing mousetraps. Intimidating and more than a little eccentric, the guest speaker, Mr. Hilchey, had somehow convinced Talani to place her hand over a loaded mousetrap. What no one in the audience knew at the time was that when your whole hand covers the entirety of a mousetrap, the only risk is a little bit of pain as the mousetrap skims the palm of your hand before clacking onto the wood. This was the physical punchline to Hilchey's theme of taking risks and stepping outside of your comfort zone. His lesson of leaving that place where you're most safe, no matter how foreboding it might seem, is one that applies to all of us in the pursuit of not only making ourselves happier, but having the experience and courage to put ourselves out there as leaders. Using the same collaborative approach Joel Hilchey used, once we have the courage to present ourselves, we can lead through service by aiding others in stepping outside of their own comfort zone.
When I first sat down with Mr. CB and Mrs. Hidley, I talked about how I wanted to develop the relationships between students and teachers at Shawnigan. Throughout my time at the conference, I learned many things. One of the most prominent was different ways of communication. For example, Sunshine, a First Nations woman who advocates for clean drinking water on the reserves in Canada, simply wrote a letter to the David Suzuki Foundation explaining her struggle and ambition. Now, she is one of the top fundraisers for the cause and is extremely well known throughout the First Nations community. This specifically taught me that there are different ways of communication, and everyone communicates differently. It ties back to the relationship between the students and the teachers at Shawnigan. Our relationship with Mr. Seaby has grown, and it has given us a better look at the school from a different perspective. Personally, my favorite form of communication is my voice, as I'm sure many of you in the chapel are aware. Your voice is the most important tool that you can use in your day-to-day life, and I have learned how to properly take advantage of this at the conference.
Throughout the conference, we were able to listen to many different keynote speakers whose perspective on leadership was very valuable. Mr. Wright spoke on the last morning of the conference. He was explaining how successful leadership consists of people following through with what they say they will do. He stressed the importance of your reputation. He explained how it can take 20 years to build a reputation and 5 seconds to break it. After all, your reputation is the most important thing you own. Mr. Wright encouraged us to be honest, forward-thinking, inspiring, and competent leaders of the future. Having the privilege to go to Lakefield for the leadership conference along with Talani, Nate, Isaac, and Mr. Seaby was an unforgettable experience. I developed new leadership strategies that will hopefully benefit the Shawnigan community in the future, made amazing new friends, and everlasting memories. On behalf of Talani, Nate, Isaac, and myself, we would like to thank our wonderful billets and those at Lakefield College School who made us feel welcome, and those here at Shawnigan. Mr. Robertson for supporting the trip, and Mr. Seaby for accompanying us, and Shawnigan for granting us with the opportunity to attend the conference. This opportunity will allow us to become better leaders, and we would encourage those interested in leadership of any kind in the Shawnigan community to apply for the conference in the future.
Good morning. I'm here today to talk about my own experience with leadership. When I first arrived at Shawnigan, I was quiet, unsure of myself, and my one fear was public speaking. Truth is, before I came to Shawnigan, I was stuck in my own bubble. This changed last year. I was given opportunities that would help me grow beyond myself. I remember last year setting a goal for myself. I have to speak in chapel before the year ends. The first time I did, my palms were sweating, my heart was beating, and my legs were shaking. To many, speaking in chapel isn't a big deal, but it was to me. I was never the confident kid in a crowd, or let alone the outspoken one, but that didn't hold me back. A leader doesn't have to be all these things. Every person sitting in this chapel is different, unique, and special. One of the most important things I've learned throughout my 2 years here is that it wasn't by changing myself that I was going to become a good leader, but it was by exploiting my best qualities as well as recognizing and growing on my opportunities. Today, I'm still not the most outspoken one in a room, but I've learned to become a good leader in my own way, by listening to others, leading by example, and considering all perspectives in any situation. I've learned that being a leader isn't about the title you obtain. Being a leader is about putting the work, the effort, and your heart into that role. Lead because you want to make a change, and because you believe in your ability and your peers' ability to make a difference in other people's lives. My message to you today is to embrace your unique qualities and make the most out of it. I encourage all of you to take on leadership opportunities, whether that be in your houses, sport teams, fine art, or in the classroom. I believe that everyone sitting here today has what it takes to become a good leader. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to approach me. I promise I don't bite. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm also here to talk to you about my experience regarding leadership here at Shawnigan. To be completely honest, I used to be that person who never wanted to speak in chapel, voice my opinion to others, or even raise my hand in class. Sorry, Mr. Mays. The thought of being a leader intimidated me at first, but over time, I developed a bit of confidence. Confidence in my ability to work in a team, to analyze situations with an open mind, and to speak up for a collective good. At the start of this grade 12 year, I had one goal for myself: to leave this school with staff and students alike in a strong position for future success. On this pursuit, I have learned some key things to keep in mind when it comes to leadership. 1, leadership is about teamwork. The only way you can reach a common goal as a group is to collaborate and compromise. The best leaders listen first. 2, being a leader means speaking up for those who don't have a voice, or to be the voice of the unpopular opinion. It's not always the right decision to just go with the flow. And finally, 3, leadership takes sacrifice. There will be long nights, stressful times, and plenty of hard work behind the scenes. But knowing that we are all working towards strengthening the Shawnigan experience makes it all worthwhile in the end. Not to say that we didn't have a lot of fun along the way. I know each and every one of you sitting in this chapel today has the potential to be a leader. You don't have to be the most loud, outspoken, or social person in the crowd. Each of you have different leadership qualities that make you an important part of this community. Take advantage of the opportunities that arise and push yourself outside of your comfort zone. You can be a leader not only within the school, but in your house, the classroom, on the stage, and on the fields. You will learn to help, collaborate, motivate, and encourage. But most importantly, you will learn how to be a better version of the person that you already are. Thank you, and please come talk to me if you have any questions.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to speak to you about my experiences with leadership. Leadership is a large component in our school, and I've had the opportunity to be a part of it over the last 3 years. However, not until this year did it play a large role in my day-to-day life. Throughout this year, I've been faced with many difficult but rewarding challenges in an attempt to make the daily life at Shawnigan more enjoyable for everyone. As this year is now coming to a close, I take time to reflect on everything I've experienced over the year. I've been fortunate enough to work with a group of people that share a similar goal in making the school a better place and are willing to sacrifice their time to do so. Also, I've had many late nights involving prep, planning, and coordinations between the prefects to ensure the success of many different events. And finally, I've learned through my experience to always be yourself through difficult times. The thing that has helped me the most through these experiences is I've had fun while I did it. Of course, there are many difficulties with being a leader, but the thing is, if you be yourself and lead the way that you want to, lead to the best of your abilities while doing it, that's what makes things worth it in the end. At the end of the day, the thing that only matters is, are you happy with the job that you did? And if the answer is yes, then that's the only thing that matters. The thing that many people don't realize is anybody has the ability to be a leader. It's not something that's excludable based on grades or social level or anything. As long as you're prepared to put in hours of your time to benefit others and you lead the way that you want to, that's what will bring you success. As I prepare to leave Shawnigan for my final time, I can honestly say with everything that I did, it was more than worth it because I led the way that I wanted to without the cost of who I was. Thank you.
Thank you, you three, and the Lakefield three, if I can call you that as well. Well done. Some good messages there for you this morning to think about. We're a bit tight on time, so I was going to say something. I'll curtail that completely. We've got AP Spanish this morning, or today. We have AP Seminar, I think, and AP Physics. So a busy day on the academic side of things. Enjoy it. Thank you.